Yeah, it says welcome to live chat.
Really? This is welcome to live chat. Oh, okay. Cool. Just not streaming on mine yet. It's weird. All right, so we'll get started in a minute. We'll see who else shows up. And oh, it's got a commercial to watch first.
Yeah, it always says that.
Oh, can you come in a little closer so I don't see my face so much? Okay, that's better.
You do see your face though.
Oh, that's worse. Oh, no, I can't see. Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so for those that are just joined, make sure you download the sheet right here. And I do have a link to all of them. We're on class number 6. And so when you get this, it will have some stuff that we're going to talk about for our 3D printing. So there we go. All right, while we're waiting, let's go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about some 3D stuff, since we still have a lot of people to join. So if you haven't been there yet, if you go to he-broa.com, you can go there in order to get my to my shapeways, and on my shapeways you'll find a lot of my stuff I 3D printed. Here's an example of something right here that I 3D printed, and this actually goes in the castle on the floor in that hole, and this little round area right here fits right into the circle hole in the bottom to give you kind of a cool aesthetic look for the castle. So you can check that out. That's where we only have 2 people on right now. How do they know that the class is today? It is 6, right? Yeah. We'll just get a couple more minutes to see who else shows up. While you guys are waiting, I would suggest maybe grabbing some ideas that you may want to turn into 3D objects or actual things for your He-Man figures. And we'll get started in just about a moment. All right, we got 4, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. All right, you guys, welcome to class number 6 of He-Bro's Masters class. And today we're talking about 3D printing. Now, you don't need a 3D printer to do 3D printing. I know it may sound kind of counterintuitive, but in reality, you can use something called shapeways. And that's what I used for a long time before I actually got my 3D printer I just recently got. Looks like Chuck has joined us. Chuck, thanks for joining us. And I'm glad you really enjoy the classes. And let's see, he says, I've always wanted to try customizing, never have until now. Well, Chuck, I'm glad you're here. Hopefully we can show you some cool things to do for your customizing. So the first thing you have to do is get yourself some 3D software. And there's lots of free 3D software. I use something called Imagine. Another program a lot of people use is called Blender. So here's Blender right here. And you can see on this Blender screen that I have the object that I made a long time ago. I made this back in like 2012. This little piece that you see in the cartoons, and it's supposed to be a stasis ray or a freeze ray, what some people call it. And in the cartoon they never showed the back, so I had to just design the back of what I thought would be cool. And so you can see on the back of this it has all those little controls and dials and stuff that I added because I didn't know what it was going to look like, so I just made it my own. Put a little number pad in there and some spots for decals and a switch and a knob and lighted LEDs and a little knob, just to make it kind of interesting, since that's the part we couldn't see. I also made the vents and kind of made them see-through so that you could actually have less material being used to save money on printing. You're going to find when you print in 3D, especially shapeways, they charge you for how much volume of material you use, so you want to find ways to cut that down. Now, when you print at home, way different story because you're buying your own stuff, and you can, of course, then you know, use more of your own stuff. So let's go ahead and talk about the process of creating a 3D object. The first thing you have to do is get yourself a pair of really good calipers. Now, these aren't super good calipers, but these work really well. And I'm going to set it for 100 millimeters. Now, for those that know your millimeters and centimeters and stuff, 100 millimeters is 10 centimeters. So now my goal was to have each one of these squares equal 1 centimeter, and I use 10 to make it easy to figure out. So if I was to take and lay this on here and then count my squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then I know that my squares equal reality. Now, when I first did this, it took a long time to keep zooming in and out to get it just right. I now know for this monitor, my zoom factor is 2.3. Let me show you what it looks like in the normal view so you can see what I had to do. So let me go ahead and reset this for a minute. So the normal way this normally looks, we'll pop in a sec, it's kind of a slow program. There we go. That's the normal view. But you can see that that is not true to life. It's much smaller. And so then I just kept changing the zoom factor over and over and over again. And like I said, for this monitor, I figured out it was 2.3. Your monitor may be different. A monitor I had before was like 2.75 something. It was a far number. But now, hold on a sec, we got a little technical error here. Camera issues, you know how it goes. Sorry, you guys. 1.5%. Put it in there on top of this with it indented side down. Is it inside it? Like that. There we go. Oh. All right. You want to grab that red one of the that right there is black. Thing right there is black and red.
Yes.
Yep, that's the one. Sorry, you guys. Oh, flip that switch on. Try now. Okay, stop. Try now. Okay. All right, now they got a new camera holder. Luckily, we got extra gear here just in case things go wrong. Hey, there we go. We're set. This one happened to break on us right at the last moment, so I'll have to throw that aside and figure out something else. Are we aimed right?
Yeah.
All right, so we're back on. Let's go ahead and continue on. So where was I? Oh, getting this set up. So you want to make each one of these squares equal to 1 centimeter, but if you only set it to 1 centimeter by setting this to 10, it's such a small sampling, you're not going to know if it actually is good or not. So you always want to go 100 millimeters or 10 centimeters when you do your measurement, and that will give you a better shot. So you can see there where I got it set to, oh, it's so hard to get exactly right. Pretty close. So you can see. All right, so I just set that on there. Count my 10 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now I know that whatever's on the screen is going to be the same size when I actually go print it. And that's key, because if you have the same size, now you know you can hold your action figure up there and say, okay, how's this going to look? You know, and you can then rotate it around and see how it's going to fit on the actual action figure ahead of time before you print it. Now, if you have your own home printer, it's not that huge of a deal if your size is off. But if you're printing something that is going to Shapeways, you might not see it for weeks. And by the time you get it, if it was wrong, now you have to wait weeks again to reprint it and pay shipping and handling and everything else to get it back. So what I used to do is I'd create my model, I would have it ready to go, and then I'd wait 2 days before I sent it to Shapeways to make sure that it was exactly what I wanted. And sure enough, I would start thinking of other things like, oh, you know, I should add this, I should change that. Well, if I already mailed it to Shapeways or sent it to Shapeways, then I'd be stuck with my one model that I made. So, trick, make sure your grid is equal to true life. Then you can use that to figure out the size of things. So let's go ahead and load a different model in here. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about how to actually make objects because there's lots of YouTube channels already on that. I'm just going to help you guys get it sized correctly so that you can have stuff work for you is the main thing. So let me go ahead and load my trap jaw weapons in here. And I made these 1/10 the size. And then I'll go ahead and upscale them 10 times. And feel free to ask questions if you guys have any. I'm actually able to see the chat today. So those little squigglies down there are my trap jaw tools. Let me go ahead and, or weapons. Let me go ahead and scale them up. Transformation. I'm going to hit scale and then times 10. And they'll be true to life. Bam. And so for trap jaw, as you watch the cartoon, there's all kinds of cool things, like his grabber that he had, for instance. You know, I used to love the grabber. That was so cool. So you can see here, here's kind of my assortment of weapons. Now for him to be a wizard of weapons, he has to have more than 3 to be a wizard of weapons. So that's why I wanted to create this little arsenal of weaponry. And you can see that once I got my 10 centimeters across, now things are actually true to life. So you can see here is his arm thing there. Here's a side view of it. Here's a top view of it. I accidentally hit the arrow key. Wait until it comes back. And another thing I made was this right here. Now this is actually a dual in one. One, it's a jet, and 2, it's a fire extinguisher. He used them in 2 different cartoons. One is a jet to jet launch him, and the other one was he used it as a fire extinguisher. And so you can see that one right here, and you can see the size of it, and it's kind of cool. I can actually compare it. And what's fun about this one is I actually had to make like a jet turbine inside the middle of it. I don't know if you guys can see this corner one up here in the picture now once it loads. We can see there's like a jet turbine in there, and you can see it inside the actual object right there too. Hopefully that's in focus. Yeah. Okay, great. So now what's kind of annoying is when I made these trap jaw weapons, you know, I made the cool laser bow thing, and I made a giant blade for him too, which you see in some of the cartoons. I made the dropper, which was one of my favorites. And the dropper is so cool because this one right here cannot be made by casting parts, because when I made the 3D parts, the spool is actually trapped inside the housing, so it can't come apart. So it's actually when I printed this on Shapeways, it was actually made in such a way that someone could not take it apart and cast it, because you can't take it apart. So it's really cool the way it was printed. And then of course I just used this from Webster to use the hook. And the dropper's used in the cartoon as well. So it's kind of a fun little dealy bob that you can use. All right, so, and again, you can see how I matched them up so they would actually be the real size. Now I also did make the fly swatter, because I saw that in one of the episodes. Now, after that, we saw they made the Filmation one, and the Filmation one came with its own fly swatter and its own laser bow. So they actually ended up having the same weapons that I already made, but you can see the ones I made are different than theirs, but still similar. So you can see a little different sizing there, and some other different things too. But it's kind of funny though how they end up making the same stuff. Like I also made a Diamond Ray of Disappearance, and they made that as well. I made a little hookah too, those little spots just like the cartoon. And like I said, most of the stuff's on my Shapeways store. One of the first things I made was this right here. This is supposed to be a transportation device, and basically Man-at-Arms types on it, and then you can send people from one place to another, and it's kind of cool. And so I made this kind of as a dual mode. Oop. Oh, now I lost it. It has a handle on the back that it didn't have in the cartoon, and yeah, I'm not finding that. It's under my desk now. But anyway, and I added the handle so that it could be used by either Tila or Man-at-Arms, and it could also be easier to hang on to. So that was one of my renditions on my like a 5th version of it. So when you do make stuff in 3D, think about things you can augment, things that you can make better. So an example is, here's the gun from Castle Grayskull. And this gun right here, when we first got it, you have to take your action figure and put his hands up and rotate them 90 degrees, and then try to stick them on to this right here, like they're giant handlebars to some kind of a, giant chopper motorcycle. And it's really hard to get them on there. In fact, sometimes it causes stress on the actual gun to get them on there. So what I designed was these little handles right here, and I just kind of pretty much made them on the computer, and then made it so it had an open hole right there, a thumb button there to press, so you can tell like you're shooting the gun, And then they slide right onto the handles, just like that. And then once I get both on there and they're slid on, they can now rotate a little bit. And now it's a much easier, more natural handle for the action figure to grab. And it's adjustable. So once the figure hangs on to them, you can actually move the gun up and down easier. Let me get that back in there. So much easier for the figure to hang on to, much easier to control the gun. And now if you raise the figure, the gun goes up. If you lower the figure, the gun goes down, and the handles rotate accordingly to work. So much cooler design. So when you are thinking about making 3D objects, it's not to be some huge thing like making your figure or a mountain or a vehicle. It can be just something small, just things to augment, the playability of the toys and the figures and stuff. Oh, what's the question? See, Master Farr, I'm not late, am I? I'm not sure. It's 6:14 you are. It started at 6. You're a little late. Hey, do you have the Battle Ram Man-at-Arms and the Snake Man-at-Arms? Yes, I do, but I don't have them here in front of you right now today. So, but sometime if you want, I can show you those. Another thing I made was I found out they could print in clear on Shapeways, so I made this little cordite crystal. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. And it's actually clear. I put a red clear on it, and then put a green on it, and then just printed it, and it's just ever so small. Now I know they actually made their own later on that came with Evil Lyn, but that was before the Evil Lyn one came out. Now something they did not remake, which I actually like a lot, are these bird stands. And it's kind of a cool 3D print that I did. I decided to take the original bird stands from the 80s and kind of redesign them for classics. So it has the hollow bottom just like the 80s did, and it has the same decoration as the 80s did. And then I noticed for figures to hang on to them, I had to make a small section for female hands, and then I had to make a larger section right above that for the male hands to hold. So that way then I was able to have both figures hold it, either female or male. Now when I was a kid, I had both birds, and I used to have He-Man and Skeletor fight with those birds on their staffs. They would both hold their staffs up on opposite ends of my living room, and they would then have the birds come in and fight and, laser shoot each other and then attack He-Man and Skeletor with the birds. And it was always kind of fun. When they made this short little stand, it was like, well, you can't do that. It's not quite as impressive or massive having this little burp stand that's only knee-high for your bird to be on. So that's why I made these stands to reminisce the old 80s stands. Oh, okay. Thanks for doing that. Another thing that I ended up making was just simple weapons. Like here's something I made for Buzz Off. It makes sense to have some kind of stinging type lance. Now I know they actually already did make this again later on, but when I first made this they didn't have it. So there was my original lance that I made. And what stinks about Shapeways, like I mentioned before, is the more material you use, the more expensive it gets. So this one did cost a little bit just because of the size of it. But if you have your own printer, you can do things as well. All right, so are there any other questions? Let's see. Master Farr says, put the Battle Ram head on the original body, put the armor from the Snake Man-at-Arms on the Origins figure, then use the loincloth and gun from 2000X Man-at-Arms figure in an instant. 2000X Duncan. Master Farr, that is a great idea. I may have to do that sometime in the future. All right, so again, a great way to make these is to go to Shapeways, and there's a link to it from he-bro.com, and you guys can actually buy a lot of my designs on there. Even now, I already got this guy on there now too, so if you wanted to get your own octopus guy for your eyeball, that's actually on Shapeways as well, which is nice because now I can make them quickly, prototype them, make sure they work, and then stick them on Shapeways for you guys. So that's cool.
Master Farr wants to know if he could get a shout out in.
Yeah. Hey, Master Farr. So, actually, I know it's kind of a short one today, isn't it? Does anybody have any questions about 3D printing? I thought it would take a lot longer to go through all that. So, Master Farr, what's your shout out you want? Oh, I meant with the 2000X Man-at-Arms. I think I read what you said to make the 2000X Man-at-Arms to do that. Do I take commissions? That's an excellent question. Contact me on Facebook, and to find me, go to he-bro.com, and then we'll talk. I don't do a lot of commissions. I do some that interest me as well. So if you have something that I will like too, then sometimes I'll do it and make two, one for myself and one for you. I had some problems with commissions in the past. If you watch my video on why I don't take commissions anymore, it kind of explains it. I did recently just take a commission though. But do you do heads? I do not do 3D printed heads. They have a lot of issues with them, and I'm not that great at painting faces yet. So I don't do 3D printed heads yet. My first 3D printed head is probably going to be a Skeletor 2000X head. I'm still working on it, but I'm not done with it yet. All right. If there's no other questions, I'm actually going to end this session early. I'm not sure I'm doing next week. I was going to do 3D scanning, but I think 3D scanning is pretty self-explanatory. It's more about setting your screen up to match. This is key right here. If you don't take anything else out of this lesson, just take that you got to make sure each one of these boxes equal 1 centimeter, so you can have true to life things actually fit the way they're supposed to, so you can look at them and size them before you print them. Hi, Heat Couple. Have you done with 3D printing using model figures to create a Black Star figure? No, I have not made a Black Star figure. That is really a really cool idea. I have thought about doing things like that. I see some great Black Star customs. I suppose you could do the sword and his chest piece pretty easily on 3D printing, but I haven't done that yet. Like I said, I'm really cautious about trying to make heads in 3D. I've only seen a few heads come out good in 3D. Even people that do it all the time, they just come out looking sometimes kind of strange. Even this, I was surprised came out so well. I was really hoping that it would come out good, and all the bumps came out okay. There's just some things with 3D printed heads that just, because of the supports and everything else, this is kind of strange. Or if you go to Shapeways to get it smooth enough, it costs so much. All right, you know what? Since we're all sitting here, I'm going to go ahead and take something from start to finish and 3D print it. Will that Skeletor head be for Origins? I'm actually making it for Classics, but it will work with Origins as well. So let's go ahead and delete this right now and bring up my other object, my stasis ray. Make sure I got the right one here. And let's make a stasis ray for Origins. Why not, right? So if you look at these two figures right here, if I was to use this ray right here, it fits right in Man-at-Arms hand for Classics, but for Origins, it's kind of small, or kind of large. They're kind of small figures for that. So I'm going to take and shrink this down on the computer to fit. But let's go ahead and figure out our aspect ratio. So Man-at-Arms is approximately 7 inches tall, just shy. And this Man-at-Arms from Origin is approximately 6 inches tall, just shy. So we know the difference is 6/7 for the percent-wise. So let's go and find that out. 6 divided by 7. And we got an answer of 0.8571. So now I'm going to take this object right here, and I'm going to go ahead and resize it. Object, and then let's see, transformation, scale, and I'm going to make it 0.8571. I'm going to copy that and paste it in the other two places. Hit perform and just shrink it down. There we go. And you can see now it's about the right size for Origins. That's what I'm looking for. So that'll be kind of cool and kind of fun. Let's go ahead and rotate this around so I can see how it will look. Yep, that will fit him pretty nicely. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to export it out as what's known as an STL. STL files. Nope, I did not work for Mattel's, and I did not create any figures. So let's go ahead and save this Origins. Stasis ray. And Now I will load this other program, which is used to print on my 3D printer. Can you see the screen pretty good? Okay. Yeah, being it's live, unfortunately, I can't just stasis ray. That's funny. Thanks, man. So let's see. The Super 7 Man-at-Arms comes with the same weapon, perfect size for Origins. Yeah, the only problem is with the one that came from Super 7 is there's no feet on it, and so you can't stand it up and just have it sit there. And that's always bothered me with their thing, because in the cartoon, Man-at-Arms has it sitting on his workbench table and he has his wrenches out working on it. And so I wanted to make sure the
hot
feet...
water trick work on heads from Shapeways.
I would not use the hot water trick on heads from Shapeways. What I would do is I would sand out the inside of the head larger so it fits, then use an O-ring and glue an O-ring on the inside, and then you can pop the head off and on easily. Sometimes when you heat up 3D printed parts, they'll just shatter on you, so you have to be careful with that. Alright, so now let's go ahead and open up my Shoot box. You can see I was kind of messing around with one earlier. And let's go ahead and open up our new file, our stasis ray. Oops, that's not the one I want. There's the Origins one. Alright. Let's see, Man-at-Arms used that in episode in The Dragon's Gift to control the dragons. Haha, that is true. He did freeze the dragons with us. Okay, I don't realize it had feet on it. Yep, in fact, that's what does bother me, is the one that Mattel made it not have feet. So you can see up here how I've loaded this up into my 3D program. This program is used for printing. And this is our slicing program. And after you have it loaded on there, this represents the biggest size I can possibly print. So this thing is pretty close to being as big as I can possibly print. And now I'm going to add my supports onto it. Is that one with Jitsu? Master Far, I'm not sure what your question's really asking. It didn't come with any figures a long time ago. It was always just with
The Dragon's Gift.
Oh, the Dragon's Gift. Oh, I'm not sure if that has Jujutsu in it or not. That's a good question. So you can see now once you add the supports, it becomes a huge giant mess. Everywhere one of these supports are touching, you're going to have to sand. So that becomes quite the issue. You want to make sure no supports are rubbing against the actual structure, otherwise it makes lines inside there. And you can see even on the inside they put supports. And so after this comes out on my 3D printer, it's going to take a while of me sanding off all those little areas and cutting off all those little supports to get it to work. But that's okay. So let's go ahead and come here and hit slice. Can you see the slice button?
You can't see what it says.
Okay. And now it's slicing it.
Do you sell armor too?
I haven't done any real armor yet, but I do plan. Oh, you want to give me that little red drive somewhere on the bed? Thanks. So now that it's sliced it puts it into different layers, and that's what STL is. It's different layers, and you can see as I slide this bar down, it actually shows the layers that it's going to print. And all the parts in white are going to become solid plastic eventually. So you can kind of see as I slide up and down, and that's just each thing is a layer. It's like cutting an apple in slices, then sticking it in ink and dunking each section in ink on a different piece of paper, and then cutting them out and stacking them together. Now this is going to cost me so much to print. It tells me how much. It's going to take about 5.5 hours for it to print. And I'll go ahead and save this to my drive, and then I'll answer your question. Hooray, it's being saved now. Okay, the questions I've pointed it facing the other way and need less supports. I probably would require less supports, but they'd probably actually put them on the tops of the feet instead of the bottom of the feet. It's easier to sand the bottom of the feet off by putting it on sandpaper and just rubbing it like this, as opposed to trying to sand all these rounded areas on the top. So I try to make my supports on the bottom, Normally I would rotate it on this end, but I didn't want to have the controls ruined at all with a bunch of points on it. So the best way would normally to have it face point up, and we'll go and try an experiment now that it's done saving. So let's go ahead and take off the supports, and let's go ahead and rotate this around and see how it looks. Oops, remove all. Okay, and let's go ahead and rotate this and stick it on its back first. Make sure it's 90 degrees. And let's go ahead and add some supports to it just for fun. We'll add some more supports upside down too. And this way it does take less supports, as you can see, but you can see it has supports on almost all my buttons and all the little areas inside there, which means trying to sand that and not ruining my cool sculpts on the back, it might be kind of a pain. Let's try it upside down.
That would be really cool for the Origins figures because I love Galaxy Warriors.
Yeah, that would be cool to, well, the Galaxy Warriors armor. Now, I have done pieces for armor for people. There's different symbols and stuff. So let me go ahead and rotate this upside down so you guys can see what it looks like then. Now, sometimes I'll get creative and go at a strange angle. Not exactly 90 degrees all the time, just to see how things come out. When I first printed my Bible, I had to put it at like a 45-degree angle for it to print. So upside down, you can see it just would become a mess of trying to sand everything out of there. Then we got this one weird one right across the front here. All right, so I think I've pretty much covered just about everything I can cover. I'm going to head downstairs and print this, and tomorrow morning it'll be done. And 'cause it takes 5.5 hours, and actually we're done about like midnight, right? So I'll be in bed by then. But anyway, that's kind of how this works. And like I said, the main key thing for those that just joined late is make sure your squares equal true to life size. Once these squares are correct and the sizing is right, each monitor is different, then it makes it really easy to produce your 3D objects. And you can see the new Origins one will be slightly smaller than the one that I have here in my hand right now. But you can actually compare it and see. And it will have the big old feet too, so it will stand on its own. It's funny, when I first made these feet, I actually used a bunch of popsicle sticks on my model I was practicing on before I sent it to Shapeways. If it was too short, it would just keep falling over. So I had to make sure they were long enough, but I didn't want them too long. And so this was the right length to make them so they wouldn't fall forward on his face. All right. Do you have anything? Nope. Okay. All right, you guys. Hey, if you want, check out my Shapeways. Buy some stuff I have. And I would suggest getting more than one thing just because of shipping and handling. There's some other great Shapeways shops there too. I've gotten some really cool stuff. What is that guy's name? I forget the guy's name, but he makes some really great 2000X stuff for the Snake Armor He-Man, and I've bought his sword and his shield and some other things like that too. So just put them all in one order, all with Shapeway artists, and like I said, there's just some great things on there. If you do get full sets, there's a discount, so if you buy all the weapons together for your trap jaw as a set as opposed to individuals, there's a slight discount for that. But again, Shapeways is expensive, which does stink, which is why I eventually broke down and bought my own 3D printer. Alright, you guys, thanks for watching. That's all I got. And I think next week might be our last session, and next week I will have a certificate for you guys to print, which will be signed by Hebro, and you can add your own name. And if you've gone through all 7 classes, feel free to print a certificate saying you've gone through Hebro's master class, and you will have your certificate saying you have successfully completed Hebro's class. So you can hang that, frame it, as long as you've watched all 7 videos. Add your name to it before you print it. All right. Thanks, you guys. See you next week, and I'll have videos also throughout the week. Bye now. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. Oh, you gotta end it. You gotta click the X in the corner.